I'm teaching. I teach you how to get rid of an improper fraction. Teach you how to get a percentage from a fraction. I teach you everything you need to know about fractions. Fractions, what's that? Lights, camera, action. Teach you everything you need to know about fractions.
Once again, we have Mr. Dewey and his song Fractions. Today, boys and girls, our essential question for 8.2 is how do I add mixed numbers? So first we're going to take a look at what a mixed number is to refresh our memory, and then we're going to go on and we're going to see exactly how do we take these mixed numbers and add them together. In order to understand today's lesson, we have to know and remember what mixed numbers are. I'm going to provide you with a couple of mixed numbers, and then on your page, or your notes page, I'd like for you to provide us with at least two mixed numbers. So here's my first example. I have 2 3/4 is an example of a mixed number. I also have 6 1/8 as an example of a mixed number. And my final example that I'm going to provide you is 7 2/3. On your notes page now, pause the video and provide two examples of mixed numbers. To warm up today, we're going to take some improper fractions and convert them into mixed numbers. So let's take a look. My first example I have is 13/8. And in order to do this, I can do the backwards C, or I can simply divide. So I know that 8 goes into 13 one time, so that becomes my whole number. I know that 13 minus 8 is 5, and I keep my denominator at 8. So 13/8 is converted into 1 5/8, which is my mixed number. Another example I'm going to provide you is 17/5. Again, it's an improper fraction. I can say to myself, how many times does 5 go into 17? And I know 5 times 3 gets me 15. So now I have to do 17 minus 15, which is equal to 2. That becomes my numerator, and I keep my denominator the same, which is 5. So 17/5 converts over to 3 2/5 for a mixed number. I'm going to give you one more example, and that is going from 3/2. So I have 3/2 here, and I'm going to convert that, and I know that 2 goes into 3 one time. I have 1 left over, and I have 1/2. So I've taken and I've gone from improper fractions to mixed numbers. This time we're going to go just the opposite way. We're going to take a mixed number, such as 2.5, and we're going to make it into an improper fraction. And this is where I have to multiply first, and then after that I have to add. So 2 times 2 is 4, plus 1 more is 5. So I have 5, and I keep my denominator at 2. Another example I can give you is 11 1/4. Again, I multiply first, so I do 4 times 11, which is 44, and then I add that 44 plus 1, and I have 45, keep my denominator, over 4. So moving from a mixed number to an improper fraction. One last example I'll give you. I will take the mixed number of 3 5/6, and I want to make that into an improper fraction. So 3 times 6 equals 18. 18 plus 5 equals 23, and I keep my denominator, which is 26. So going from a mixed number to an improper fraction, I multiply and then add whatever the numerator is. Okay, now it's your turn to give it a try. I have 3 improper fractions here: 7/5, 12/4, and 11/3. You will notice that this is also on your notes page under the Give It a Try section. I want you to pause the video at this time and go ahead and convert these improper fractions to mixed numbers. Okay, now let's check your work. For the first one, 7/5, I know that 5 goes into 7 one time, and I have to do 7 minus 5 equals 2. That's my numerator, and I keep my denominator the same. So my mixed number now is 1 2/5. Over here for 12/4, I know that 4 goes into 12 3 times. That goes in evenly, so my answer is actually 3. I'm finished there. And then down here, my last one, I have 11/3. 3 goes into 11 3 times. That gives me 3 times 3 is 9. 11 minus 9 is 2. And I keep my denominator, and I get 2/3. So my answer there is 3 2/3. On this Give It a Try, we're going to take and make these mixed numbers into improper fractions. So pause the video at this point, look at your notes page, and convert these 3 problems now. Okay, remember, we're going to multiply and then add to make it an improper fraction. So 3 times 2 is 6, plus 1 more is 7, and then I keep my denominator, which is 7 halves. Over here for 4 3/4, 4 times 4 equals 16. 16 plus 3 equals 19, and 19, and I keep my denominator, which is a 4. So I have 19/4. And down here, my last problem, 8 times 1 equals 1. 8 plus 7 equals 15. 15 over 8. So there we've gone and we've taken mixed numbers and converted them into improper fractions. Okay, now that we're done with the review, let's take a look at what we're going to learn today. And that is adding mixed numbers that have a common denominator. And you can see here that in this problem, my common denominator is 8. So I'm going to think back to what I did when I added fractions, and I kept the denominator, so my answer is going to keep the denominator of 8, and I added the numerators. So I would add 3 plus 1 for an answer of 4. But now I also have this whole number in here, so I have to take my 5 and my 3 and add those up and come up with the answer of 8 and 4 halves. And then some of you might be able to see that my 4/8 is also a half, so I can reduce that to get 8 and 1/2. So that's just one example of adding mixed numbers with a common denominator. Let's take a look at another example. In this example, I have 8 7/10, and I'm going to add 5 9/10. So I'm going to take my denominator, and that stays the same, so that's a 10. I take my numerators, 8 plus 7, and I have 16, and I add my whole numbers, and 8 plus 5 equals 13. Hopefully what you notice here is that I have an improper fraction in 16/10, and we're going to take a look at that on the next slide. If we go back to what we did in the beginning of this lesson and we take away the 13 for a second, pretend it's not there, I'm going to simply say 10 goes into 16 how many times? That's 1 time. I have 6 left over, and I keep my denominator at 10. I'm going to take this whole number of 1 and add it to this 13 over here. So my new answer is 14, and I have what I have left over here, and 6/10. Because of this improper fraction here, I had to convert that, and that's what I did over here to make it a mixed number. Let's take a look at another example. In this example, the denominators are the same as well, so I know that my denominator is going to stay at 3. I'm going to add my numerators, which is 2 plus 1, and I have a 3 there. And I come over and I add my whole numbers now, and 6 plus 2 equals 8. So my answer is 8 3/3. What? You're saying, oh, this equals 1 whole? You're correct. 3/3 does equal 1 whole, so I can take and I can add that to my whole number. So my actual answer, when I add those two fractions together, is 9. Okay, now we're at a give it a try time. On your notes page, you'll see these two problems that are in front of you. 1 3/4 plus 2 3/4, and 8 7/10 and 5 9/10. Pause the video at this point and go ahead and solve those two problems. If you remember how to do improper fractions with your answer and converting them into the whole number, great, go for it. If you don't remember, you can rewind the video and look at that part again to see how you convert those improper fractions back into the whole number. So again, pause the video, try these two on your notes page. Okay, here we go. So my first problem, I'm going to add 3 plus 3, and I have 6, and I keep my denominator, and then I add my whole numbers, and my answer is 3 6/4, but that red flag goes off in my head. I see that I have an improper fraction there. So I know 4 goes into 6 1 time, so I'm going to add that 1 there and to get 4, and I have 2 left over, so I have 4 2/4, or I can make that, reduce that a little bit more to get 4 1/2. So the answer here is either 4 2/4 or 4 1/2. My next problem, I have 8 7/10, and I'm going to add 5 9/10 to it. 10 is my denominator, so I'm going to keep that the same. Now I have 9 plus 7, which is equal to 16, and 8 plus 5 equals 13. I know, again, that red flag goes off because it's an improper fraction over here. 10 goes into 16 1 time, so now this becomes not 13 but 14, and I have 6 left over when I do that, and I have keep my denominator, which is 10, which is 14 and 6/10. And again, I can reduce that to get 2/5, but I will accept 14 and 6/10. So great for giving it a try. Now we're going to take a look at adding mixed numbers, but this time our denominators are going to be different. So remember, we have to come up with equivalent fractions, which is what we did in the previous lesson. So here I can see that I have 3/4 and 7/8, and I have to come up with an equivalent fraction here and an equivalent fraction here. And if I know my multiplication facts, I know that 8 is equivalent, so I can keep that the same, and I can make this an 8. 4 times 2 equals 8, so 3 times 2 equals 6. Now I have my new problem, which is this right here, 6/8 plus 7/8. And when I add 6 plus 7, I know that's equal to 13, and I have an 8 there, but I cannot forget about my whole numbers over here, 3 plus 2, which equals 5. So my answer is 5 and 13/8. Yep, wait a second. I have an improper fraction there, so I know that 8 goes into 13 one time, so that extra 1 becomes a 6, and I know that 13 minus 8 equals 5, and I keep my denominator, so my new answer, my complete answer, my 5th grade answer is 6 and 5/8 when adding mixed numbers with uncommon denominators. Let's try one more. Here's our second example. I see that I have 7/8 and 1/6, and I need to come up with common denominators there. And remember, we can do quick common denominators by simply multiplying both denominators by themselves. So I know that 8 times 6 equals 48. So that becomes my common denominator. So 8 times 6, so this becomes an 8. 8 times 6, 6 times 7 equals 42. 42 plus 8 equals 50. 50 over 48, and I cannot forget about those whole numbers. 8 plus 1 equals 9. And again, that red flag goes off, improper fraction. 48 goes into 50 one extra time, so that 9 becomes a 10. I have 2 left over, becomes my numerator, and 48 here. So my answer is 10 and 2/48. Oh, there's that give it a try time. I have these two problems in front of you, are also on your notes page. Pause the video at this point and go ahead and try and add mixed numbers with uncommon denominators. Okay, hopefully you finished those, and now we can take a look at the answers. I have 1/2 and I have 3/8. I know that they're uncommon, so I have to come up with an equivalent fraction, and I know that my multiplication facts, I can use 8. You might have used something different, but we'll get the answer in the end. So that stays the same. This one becomes 8, and I know that 2 times 4 equals 8, so 1 times 4 there. So 4 plus 3 equals 7 over 8, and I can't forget about those whole numbers. 4 plus 2 equals 6, so my answer is 6 and 7/8. My next problem over here, I have 3/5 and I have 2/3. I'm going to come up with a common denominator of 15 by doing a quick common denominators. 3 times 5, so I have a 5 here. So I have to do a 5 up here. 2 times 5 equals 10. Up here it's timesing it by 3. Timesing this by 3. 3 times 3 equals 9. 9 plus 10 equals 19 over 15. In my whole numbers, I have 4 plus 2, which equals 6. So my answer is 6 and 19/15. But again, improper fraction, so I've got to make it a mixed number. 15 into 19 goes once, so that becomes a 7. 4 left over, and I have 4/15. To wrap it up today, we did a couple of different things. We added with common denominators, such as 2 and 3/5 plus 1 and 2/5. We also added with uncommon denominators, so I had 2 and 3/5 plus 1 and 2/4. And we also took mixed numbers and made them into improper fractions, and took improper fractions and made them into whole numbers or mixed numbers. Go ahead and take a look at what's next on the agenda for today.